For Sunday, January 14th, you found the Georgia gang. Topping our agenda today, there was a bungle in the Benz, and it was called a football game. Governor Deal says nothing lame about him, and there are tapes in the City Hall bribery scandal. Some of the stories up for grabs on the Georgia gang.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia gang starts now.
We're glad you could be with us. We have said for the last couple of weeks that we are the epicenter of college sports, pro sports too, in a lot of ways. But I want to be the bad guy this morning and suggest that we, the city of Atlanta, and the Mercedes-Benz Stadium did not handle the Georgia-Alabama game very well. Condolences to you, Phil, for your Bulldogs. And
thank you. I'm still in mourning.
Theron, you being from Athens.
Yeah.
Tough loss for the Dogs. Nice win for Bama. But I got nothing but complaints about the way things were handled entering and exiting the stadium. And in fact, I think we could safely say there was the potential for real danger outside that stadium on Monday night. Phil, what do you think?
Well, as we remember, the weather was a big factor, and it was a miserable night, and it was raining, and of course we had security concerns with President Trump coming in. But more so, to your point, we had a piece on Insider Advantage where a fellow was there trapped, like many were, for several hours. What happened was with your mobile phone, they got wet, and the tickets were not scanned properly, so there was a holdup. And I hadn't even thought about that problem.
Yeah, and I think what we saw is that leading up to the game, you know, like you and other people, I got there about 4 hours early. And so once President Trump landed, I mean, they cut off all of the entrance gates to them. But to Phil's point, let's be clear here, Dick. I think that the city of Atlanta, the state, and all of the different security people, public safety officials, they did everything they could to prevent any problems. I think to Phil's point, I think the Mercedes-Benz Stadium need to do a better job of allowing people to access their tickets through paper tickets or plastic tickets. But when the phones go out, I mean, that's what really caused
batteries ran down,
Correct.
Rain got on them. But I think you're underplaying it a little bit there, and the press did this in general. They talked about how Gate 1 was closed to allow for President Trump. I had a friend at Gate 4 who waited 2 hours and 14 minutes, continually sent pictures to me. It was a bad situation, no security, no police, and it was worse for the people who were stuck there standing for 2 hours in that cold rain because they didn't know what was going on.
Right.
They couldn't figure out how, am I getting in this thing or not?
Right.
I think it altogether was a bad deal. Then you add the malfunction of MARTA. How about that?
Yeah, that was too bad too. The trains just didn't.
The doors weren't opening.
And there were too many people crushing it to get in, so the doors didn't operate properly. They wouldn't open, they wouldn't close, and it just caused more
And
chaos.
they closed down at 2 a.m., which was a problem, and I think MARTA is going to have to rethink that when you've got a huge event with people coming into those trains.
Well,
We've got a Super Bowl
hours.
coming. I raise all this because we've got a Super Bowl coming.
Right.
We had an ice storm the last time we had a Super Bowl. That's not within our control.
The year 2000, right. That's right.
But still, Arthur Blank is obviously a consummate manager. He's obviously a professionally trained manager. He built a wonderful thing downtown. I hope he's had a come to Jesus meeting, so to speak, with the staff, with the police,
with
the state police, with everybody involved, with MARTA, and say, we got to fix this.
Well,
People
that's right.
cannot wait 2 hours and 14 minutes at a gate in a driving rain to go to a game.
Well, I think we all agree, and you know, Alexis and I were talking before we got on the broadcast, and there's no designated Uber location for a lot of people. They have to wander around with their phones and find their rides, and I hope that gets fixed too.
Yeah, but I don't want to overshadow. I mean, at the end of the day, we didn't have any major catastrophe. You know, no folks were injured.
Nobody got killed.
No one got killed. I mean,
friends of mine, including the former mayor of Dunwoody, who was in that crowd, he said it could have happened.
it could have happened.
But it did not.
Didn't take much to touch it off, was his view.
But I think we got to give a level of thanks and kudos to all the different agencies coming together to make sure that there wasn't any type of major security issue that happened. But yes, I mean, I think that going forward, Arthur Blank, the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, the mayor, the governor, all the different people, the federal government agencies will come and analyze what happened, and I think we'll be fine when the Super Bowl comes.
Well, I think so, because we're good at this generally.
Yeah.
And I think, and we've got great management people to do it.
Right.
But I just, here's my point. I think this was underplayed a little bit. But I don't think people realize just how serious the crowds were outside the stadium. They were focused on Gate 1, and they immediately blamed President Trump's presence, right? That was the first thing you heard. Well, it's all because of Trump. Well, no, it wasn't, because Trump was at Gate 1, and there were thousands and thousands of people at Gate 4.
Yeah, but as someone who stood in the rain hour, I mean, I was next to A.J. Green, an all-time leading receiver at the University of Georgia, who couldn't get to will call to get his tickets. But to underplay the president's visit, I mean, that had a large part to do with it.
And it had a domino effect on everything else.
I mean, when he
landed,
landed, Dick, they shut down everything. And then I think that the staff of the mayor and the governor and everyone proactively told folks, hey, be prepared for this. So I think going to that game, you knew that there was going to be some wait times. You knew that there was going to be extra security. I mean, they communicated that days in advance.
True enough.
And it was fortunate that the state and the county offices there in Fulton County did shut down by 2:30.
Right.
And that helped a lot.
Right.
Right.
All right, let's take a break here, because when we come back, we're going to make a bit of a profit out of Phil, and we'll talk more about a new twist in the bribery scandal at Atlanta City Hall. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
Late last week, we learned that Adam Smith, the former procurement director for the city of Atlanta, is in line for a reduced sentence because of his testimony in the alleged bribery scandal at Atlanta City Hall, and that Adam Smith had tape recordings. Phil, you said that one day, a few months ago, and
We reported it right here on the Georgia Gang.
I let you say it, but I wasn't sure you were right.
Well, I said my
But
sources
now we know,
said.
and they're asking for a 40% reduction in his sentence. It's pretty hefty, Alexis.
That is hefty, but he had a pretty hefty sentence, like 5 years, so that's still.
But he has tapes in it. The way I read it, tapes of several people.
What wasn't clear to me was when the tapes were made. Were they made after he left city employment? I don't know.
No, we don't know that.
Well, I'm told again by my sources that he was wearing a wire before he was fired as Mayor Kasim Reed's chief procurement officer. And one of the interesting things in this ongoing federal investigation of pay-to-play bribery at the City Hall is we still don't know to this day who the bribes went to in City Hall. So that's why the investigation has been ramped
I'll
up.
go you one better. We don't know if bribes
Exactly.
made their way
That's what I was going
to
to say.
City
too.
Hall.
We
But
don't
we
know.
can think now, Theron, if Adam Smith was wearing a wire, some money must have been exchanged.
Yeah, this is very unfortunate, and clearly it kind of casts this, I think, unfair cloud over the Biden administration. But let's be clear for our viewers. I mean, she's the new mayor. This happened in a former administration.
In the Reed administration.
Yeah, the Reed administration. But I want to push back a little bit on this whole pay to play. I think that's really not fair to the hardworking people who do it the right way. The city employees who actually wake up and try to make sure that the procurement process, everything that goes on with the city of Atlanta is done right. But look, if Adam Smith wore wires, and if he was notified that he was being investigated, that's something that we're finding out, and this is sort of unprecedented to ask for a 40% reduce in a sentence. And so it's we got to really just let the legal process play itself out. We don't know all the facts, but I think we'll know.
Well,
Right, and
coming.
one of the reports said that following his arrest and his dismissal, they went to a contractor's office and raided. It was.
That's right. It was a Sandy Springs airport vendor.
So we don't know if he was being taped talking to vendors or potential vendors or city people. We don't know. And the one person who was mentioned in the city government has not been indicted as a person who may have been paid.
Well, they're still trying to flip people. That's what you do in an investigation like that. It's probably going to take a little more time. In fact, in late December, the U.S. Attorney B.J. Pack, who's become far more aggressive in working this bribery investigation, has said they're still investigating new conspirators. That was his words.
Well, I still say there is still that possibility of what Dick raised, that nobody in City Hall that they were.
That is. At one time I thought that was far-fetched.
I don't think that scenario is going to play out. I'm sorry.
Well, especially in this latest development indicates multiple people, discussions on tape. It looks like it's going farther. Any thought that we once might have had that somebody just kept the bribes for themselves is probably.
There'll be more indictments.
All right, let's change gears and go across the street from the state capitol, from the city hall to the state capitol. I loved Governor Nathan Deal's line. I think it was at the Eggs and Issues breakfast this past week when he said, "Nothing lame about this duck."
Yeah, I mean, I was there, and it was so unique because Governor Deal, he gave a great speech, and then he started at the end. He just kind of flipped his page, and then he just really sent a laser-like message to his opponents on the Republican side and the Democratic side, and that is that if you try to distort my record, if you try to play, with the facts, I have enough ammunition. I mean, he talked about being armed and ready to push back. I mean, he did everything except pull out his 45.
It was a message to the governor candidate.
Yeah, he could have just pulled out his 45 and laid it on the podium. I mean, it was very direct.
I agree with you, and it was necessary because there's a lot of unfortunate misinformation.
And then contrast that with his State of the State address, which was very emotional. At several points, he teared up. He got me teared up a couple of times.
What?
When he talked about just because you just don't think of Nathan Deal in that way.
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting what he had to say, especially about his wife.
I think we can pause a minute to kind of reflect on the Deal legacy. Yes, he has one more year left to go, and he was talking about his budget priorities. $25 billion budget. Think of that. But anyhow, I think that you have to, whatever your politics are, you have to give him high marks for management, for keeping a big rainy day fund. We keep our AAA bond rating. He
guiding us out of the Obama recession.
Guiding us out of the Obama recession and
Bush recession.
And the partnership with former Mayor Kasim Reed.
That's right.
Back several years ago. It did help with economic expansion of the Savannah port. I think we've all talked about that. It remains to be seen if the new mayor, Keisha Bottoms, will continue that.
Oh, she will. I mean, she actually went over and had some very productive meetings last week with key Republican leaders. She met with the governor, she met with Lieutenant Governor, she met with the Speaker. But one of the things that didn't come up in the State of the State, and a lot of folks have said this, is that they really wanted to see if the governor was going to put some money in his budget to give pay raises to teachers. Now, he's done it in the past. He's been stellar when it comes to education. And there was also some talks about Medicaid expansion as well.
Well, the Democrats, in their response, the new minority leader in the State House, Bob Trammell, mentioned two things. The Democrats' desire to expand Medicaid, which Governor Deal and the Republicans have resisted, and it sounded like a blast from the 80s, that QBE, Quality Basic Education, needs to be funded in full.
Right, which has never happened, and they continue to push that.
Well, we've given more education funding under Governor Deal than ever before.
But that's because he cut so much than ever before.
Well, because we had a recession.
And that
I know you just like printing money and spending it. But
as long as we're spending $15,000 a student in Atlanta public schools, I'm not too concerned about money for education.
And the Democrats are locked into the agenda of the public school unions, and they have fought parental choice. They fight. A lot of African Americans polls show are for parental choice. I think Deal is going to continue to push that.
Let's try to stay objective, Phil, and let's not inject race in this. What was also fair.
Race.
Well, you mentioned African Americans.
Well, I'm citing a poll.
Yeah, I know, but I think the overall issue that we're trying to say on the panel is that the governor has a unique opportunity to continue to fully fund public education. And actually, if you looked at the State of the State the way I did, he said that, look, we put together a bipartisan coalition of folks that was with the Georgia Chamber to look at ways that we can expand Medicaid. So there's nothing wrong with
you don't like parental choice? Is that what you're trying to say?
What I'm trying to say is that don't criminalize or try to say that the minority party is wrong for bringing up key issues like Medicaid expansion, like fully funding education.
They can bring up anything they want. That's the point of a two-party thing. I'm thinking, I thought you were for parental choice.
No, I'm for fully funding public education, and what we've said on the show.
That's not the issue.
Yeah, well, no, the issue is it's mixed. I mean, some people actually support choice, some people don't. I think that it all is about not making sure that you don't cut funding from public education.
We're off the main target now. We also should mention that the governor said that he will consider, in fact, is likely to call a special session of the General Assembly if Amazon picks Georgia as one of its finalists.
Right.
I thought that was fascinating.
And the other thing that I think was interesting too is the impact of the tax cuts, federal tax cuts. We still don't, that's an unknown.
It is an
what
unknown.
the impact that's going to have on the state budget. And
It is,
state
but I think
revenue.
it will be good, and I think that's where the governor and some of the leadership is waiting to see what happens in D.C. But Dick, to your point on Amazon, I heard a speech. It was very good the other day by David Rubinger, the publisher of the Atlanta Business Chronicle. I have a lot of respect for that publication, and he was pointing out that he thinks we've got to be in the top list for Amazon. But I tell you, we talked about the bribery
On the grounds that we're one of the
investigation.
few who meet all the criteria.
We do. I'm afraid this bribery investigation at City Hall is hurting us.
Yeah, that's unfair, Phil, because also I can say the Republican support of RIFA is hurting us. And so what the
That's
governor,
true.
yeah, I mean, let's be fair. I mean, let's not continue to just inject partisan politics in an objective matter. But what the governor also said, Dick, which I was very happy, is let's not be presumptuous. You know, let's not get ahead of ourselves here, legislators. Let's not start, introducing legislation and get ahead of, the game here. So I think he was very cautious and very direct that we're still in the running, but let's not get ahead of ourselves.
All right, we got to get out. When we come back, we'll talk about some of that legislation, which we didn't just get to. We'll explain that, and a lot of money for Emory University. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
Interesting the way news flows and progresses. This last week we had the breakdown at the Benz. We had the state address by Governor Deal. We had the convening of the legislature. And lost in all that on that Monday, the Monday of the game, was the U.S. Supreme Court hearing the water wars case between Georgia and Florida. And Phil, it seemed to break down oddly to me on liberal and conservative lines. Water, I didn't think had ideological leanings.
Well, I agree with you. You heard Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg whining about the loss of oysters in Florida and this and that, and so it's a shame that you got some of that ideology. I do think, though, that the special master.
Oysters have ideology, see?
Look at her remarks. I mean, we talk about ideology and partisanship all the time on this show. No surprise there. But it did break down. I agree with you, and I will say this: the
I
positive
thought they were
thing.
there to affirm the report of the special master.
Well,
And
yes.
they went well beyond that.
They did, and I still think the special master's report, as we talked about last week, Alexis, was good for Georgia, and he did not want to cap our water, and we were doing conservation, so it did take a turn.
Yeah, it did. So it'd be interesting to see how it turns out.
Well, I thought we were in great shape. I'm not so sure
in.
right now. This may go on forever. One little thing that they did mention before the High Court was that they were struck by the fact that Florida didn't use the Army Corps of Engineers in their thinking.
The training manual, that's right. I think that's very important. The Army Corps of Engineers, I've never been a big fan, even though I'm an Army veteran. It's a big bureaucracy, and that is a glitch in the case.
Okay, going back to General Assembly for just a minute. The only bill that really seemed to be moving in this first week was the adoption bill. It is clean of the religious objections, but some technical things were put in it that I think endangers it a little bit. The Senate committee added a few technical things about waiting times for mothers who are putting their children up for adoption.
Yeah.
They look to me like they can be worked out, and they're saying there might be a vote at the end of this coming week, huh?
I think
That's the
by
way it
2
looks.
weeks, don't you?
Yeah, I think this is a top priority for the Republican leadership and also for Democrats. I was very happy to see that discriminatory language removed from the bill. And then when it goes to the House, I think you'll have some robust discussion about it. But to your point, Dick, when it's all said and done, I think we'll get a very good adoption bill.
Well, I have to go way back in the memory bank to find a time when the governor, the speaker, and the lieutenant governor, all in the same week, make very forthright statements that this bill has got to be clean and as is. All three of them said it, and you're seeing it
Last
start to
session,
move.
at the end of last session was a mess. And a lot of good bills, died. And the Republicans, since they control both chambers, they have to produce something. And I think this is the fruit of that. You're going to try to see this.
And as Alexis
taken
has
care of.
reminded us, it's election year time.
So they don't want any controversy out there to mess them up and keep the
All right,
incumbents.
a couple of local items that I think are worth discussion. or at least acknowledging. The Woodruff Foundation, Atlanta's greatest benefactor, really,
Right.
$400 million to Emory University, specifically, I think, to the Winship Cancer Center for
amazing.
continued research and patient care.
Right, that is going to be a phenomenal boost not only to the economy but to the research and study and care of people who are living with cancer.
And going back to some other bungles and some other things that might hurt us when we talk about Amazon and things like that, that airport power outage, Delta now says that between the power outage and the what was the other thing, the storms, that it cost them $60 million, and they want the money back. And they're talking with Georgia Power and with the city of Atlanta. How would you like to inherit that mess if you were Keisha Lance Bottoms?
Yeah.
But Roosevelt Council says all is well. We're going to build all kinds of generators. What do you think?
He's the airport manager, and you know, we did have some generators there that didn't work. One of them didn't have fuel, and so I think. Again, though, I think the Bottoms administration is addressing it. I think that, and I think that Ed Bastian, the president of Delta Airlines, is going to have a prayer meeting with the city.
Well, he's on the transition team for Keisha Lance Bottoms.
That's right.
So I'm sure everybody will be participating. And what the general manager of the airport wants is generators for each concourse separately, which was not in existence before. So
Which makes sense, doesn't
absolutely,
it?
absolutely.
So
we should have had that taken care of. It's incredible the bungling that went on.
And in the meantime, now we don't have time for that. I'm not going to glorify what a couple of city councils did. When we come back, we'll go straight to winners and losers.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
And don't forget us on Facebook and our own YouTube channel, The Georgia Gang. We're there. Phil, what do you got? Winners and losers?
I've got all winners. I think Governor Deal, as we talked about, was a winner this week with his State of the State. An old friend of mine from my Augusta days, former Congressman Doug Bernard, he was the last of the conservative Democrats, died the other day at age 95. He got his start as an executive assistant to Governor Carl Sanders. Great guy. Tom Barton, the editorial page editor of the Savannah Morning News, a longtime journalist. They called him the conscience of Savannah, won a lot of writing awards. He retired the other day, 37 years in Savannah. And then a couple quick legislative notes. Two winners, Brian Strickland, he's the new senator from out in Henry County, and he was replaced in the House by Jeff Cauble as a representative. Republicans all.
2 wins for the Republicans in transitional areas, interestingly enough. All right, Alexis, what do you have?
Okay, I'm going to recognize the late John Hurst Adams. He passed this week. He was a revered, retired senior bishop in the AME Church. He was a former chair of the ITC, which is the Interdenominational Theological Center over in Atlanta University Center, and just an all-around great educator, orator, teacher, civil rights activist, so he will be missed. He also was a part of an early power couple. His wife, Dolly Adams, was the 8th president of the National Links Incorporated. So they were just a really wonderful contributors to the community. And then I want to make Fox 5 my winner for showing again the ecumenical service of the King Holiday service at Ebenezer Baptist Church, which is coming on Monday morning, and the featured speaker is going to be Bernice King this year, so be well worth looking.
I think Fox 5 has done that since the inception of the service.
Yes, they have.
I can go back to memories of Paul Shields being the anchor at that.
That's right, and Jacqueline Maddox taking over from that.
That's right.
She did it for years, and then Amanda Davis too.
Darren, what do you have?
Well, I want to make the Georgia Chamber of Commerce a winner. They had their annual Eggs and Issues breakfast, but more importantly, the governor gave a wonderful speech, but they've instituted this new program called Authentic Georgia. They're really focusing on rural places across the state, trying to help them do better in business and giving them incentives to do so. And then also, I want to recognize Jason Estevez. He became the chair of the Atlanta Public Schools Board. He got a unanimous vote, so as we move into the Bottoms administration, Estevez is going to be a key player in trying to continue to have a working relationship. And then also I want to make a winner the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus. They introduced some hate crime bills.
Republican had already done that a week before.
Well, it's bipartisan support, and the Republicans did it to be point, but to have that a top priority on both sides of the aisles, I think is very important for our prosperity in the state.
We don't have time now, but that bill is totally unnecessary.
No, it's very necessary.
I will note, however, that it has the support of the GBI and a lot of law enforcement agencies, so we need to look deeper into the causes of all that. I will make as my winner the Coca-Cola Company. I wondered what they were going to do with Diet Coke, and we learned this week they're going to have 4 new flavors of Diet Coke in skinnier cans.
How about that?
And lots of choices. So after the taping, we can all go try a new flavor of Diet Coke.
But I think they're targeting millennials.
Oh, okay.
And
well then,
they've won
sorry.
me over with Coke Zero.
They got me with Coke Zero too. You're right. I'm there. And finally, Monsignor Donald Kiernan, the pastor of All Saints Catholic Church in Dunwoody, he died this week at 93. He was a pioneer Catholic in the Diocese of Georgia. In fact, when he came to Atlanta as a priest, Atlanta wasn't his own diocese. We're part of the Diocese of Savannah.
Wow.
And when Monsignor Kiernan came, there were 6 parishes in North Georgia. Today, there are 90 Catholic parishes.
Wow.
So he truly spanned the history of Catholicism in North Georgia. An interesting fellow. His funeral's Wednesday. I don't think I've ever met anyone who just liked him. He's just an amazing guy. And we'll see you next week on the Georgia Gang.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.